Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for hanging out with me on a great Tuesday in April. Hope the weather is finally starting to warm up wherever you are and you are ready for spring. My name is Clay Travis. This is Outkick the Show. We got a bunch of different things to get to. Let me give you a rundown. The AAF has officially folded. What's going to happen now, and how good of a deal is this for the XFL? Should they be ominous? Should they be fearful? Should they be concerned by the ominous tides of the response to spring football? Coach Cal continues to be the most overpaid player or coach in the history of college athletics. Yes, that includes Cam Newton. The best NFL win total bets for the early numbers that are out, and Game of Thrones gambling odds as we move closer and closer to the official start of winter on television. But we start with the AAF folding. I think this is the AAF folding is massively good news for the XFL. Now let me tell you why. First of all, the AAF demonstrated there is a big demand for spring football. Easy answer to the question, do people want spring football? I think the answer was yes. This is out there, but you have to research it a little bit. The XFL is going to air on Fox and on ESPN. That is, they are going to have the two biggest partners that they could possibly have in the world of sports. And if you remember what got the AAF buzz started, it was the initial game airing on CBS. You remember that? Everybody was like, wow, this game airing on CBS outrated the NBA head-to-head on ABC. And I believe what is going to happen is there are going to be games from the XFL airing on Big Fox, ESPN, FS1, and ABC. This league is going to be well distributed. I was also told that the AAF went to Vince McMahon, hat in hand, and said, will you please buy our league? We don't have the money to continue for year two. Vince McMahon had his people meet with the AAF, look over all of their books, look over everything that they had to bring to bear, and said, thanks, but no thanks. You've got nothing I'm not already going to have. And he stepped out of the way and let that league go into the gutter, knowing that they would be done by the time he came back and launched his league this coming spring. I think the run-up for the XFL is going to be incredibly successful. I think this league, the AAF, demonstrated there's a desire for spring football, but unfortunately, what they also demonstrated is if you don't have good relationships and if you don't have the ability to be able to take control of the finances of a league, you're in trouble. That's why I think Vince McMahon coming in with big money is going to make a substantial difference. I would buy stock right now in the XFL if I could. The big thing that I think the XFL has going for it is, and this has not gotten a lot of attention yet in the media, they're going to sign guys who are current college players. Again, not a lot of people talking about this, but the AAF at the end of next season in college football could theoretically go to all of the recent finishers of the regular season in college football and say, hey, you just played in that Michigan-Ohio State game. Why, instead of going to a bowl game and completing your sophomore year, don't you roll straight into an XFL camp, turn pro, we'll pay you several $100,000. If you're a big name player, you can go ahead and sign a shoe marketing deal, whatever else you want, and you will be able to run directly into the XFL season, then sit out, train if you desire before the NFL, during the NFL season, get ready for the combine, and you'll be, boom, ready to go. I think that's a pitch that could have a lot of appeal, and there could be a decent number of players that respond to it. Think about it for a minute. As soon as their freshman or sophomore years are over, at the end of November for the final game of the season, the XFL can contact all these guys and say, hey, Why are you coming back and playing another year of college football? Why are you going to go risk your future playing in a bowl game? Come play for us. We'll give you several $100,000 now. We'll keep you in shape, and you will then have the ability to go out and play in the NFL. Or if you do really well, we'll sign you to a long-term futures contract here, and you can make millions of dollars guaranteed with us. I think that's an appealing offer they would be able to put out there to a lot of people who think to themselves, why would I go back and play college football for free when the XFL is willing to sign me after my freshman or sophomore years? I think that's a pitch that could have a lot of interest out there. I'm not sure how many guys will respond to it, but I think there are a lot of players that would respond to that very favorably. So I like the potential for the XFL. Remember, the AAF wouldn't compete with the NFL. If you're competing with college, in other words, if you're saying, hey, we'll give you $150,000, $200,000, plus you can go sign any marketing deal you want, why wouldn't you go ahead and take that opportunity? I think there's a lot of potential there. Not to mention gambling. The XFL is going to continue to grow as sports gambling continues to grow. Any questions out there about the AAF and the XFL? I think there's probably a lot of questions out there based on what I see popping. What hurt the XFL the first time? I think they would say they launched too quickly. I think the expectations were too high, frankly. The XFL aired on NBC last time, and the quality of play was not very good. I think that's what hurt the XFL the most. They tried to reinvent the wheel as opposed to acknowledging that the wheel works pretty well. I think what they're trying to do now is be more of a minor league NFL scenario and less of an NFL competitor. So I think that's the direction that they are likely to head. I don't think there's any doubt that they learned from the errors they made before, and this will lead to a much more productive product. Here's the other thing that I think is substantial. The XFL doesn't need to produce a massive audience. All they need to do is produce a relatively consistent audience. The AAF audience was actually really good. And so if the XFL can produce those kind of numbers on ESPN and on FS1, those are infinitely higher numbers than most live sports get. That is going to be a big, big number in terms of this modern era where audiences have shrunk overall. Somebody said, who's going to give AAF players endorsements? Anybody that wants a relationship with a star player? Is this a stupid question? If they are willing to pay Nike and Adidas and Under Armour $100,000 or more to a kid who's playing college sports to wait for him to get to the NFL or to get to the NBA, when you are a professional and you can appear in television commercials, there's a lot of interest in those guys. Imagine what Johnny Manziel would have been worth after his redshirt freshman year when he won the Heisman Trophy. There would have been a tremendous amount of interest in him. Imagine what Tim Tebow would have been worth after his sophomore year when he won his Heisman Trophy and still had to go back and play for Florida. Imagine what Trevor Lawrence right now would be worth if he comes out, has an incredible second year. Then his ability to go pro is pretty high. I mean, this would be a really smart play that makes an awful lot of sense from a business perspective. It basically allows you to unlock the value faster than you would otherwise be able to do it. I understand that many of you out there are mosquito dicks. And the way that I always characterize a mosquito dick is, mosquito dick thinks of reasons why something is not going to work, right? The mosquito dick line of thinking, and I can see it in the comments already. Mosquito dick line of thinking is, why would I leave my $34,000 a year job when I've got a Honda Civic and I have a roommate, when I might not keep this $34,000 a year job and my Honda Civic, and I might have to move and share a room with somebody else if things didn't go well? If you think like a mosquito dick, all right, for the rest of your life, you'll be protecting a tiny little nugget of gold, right? You got one tiny little nugget of gold, and whatever it is, you don't actually take a risk. You protect that tiny little nugget, and what eventually happens is I see it happen all the time, and this is basically social media writ large. You will start to attack people who don't think like Mosquito Dicks because you're jealous of the risks that they take. This is social media writ large. People who don't take risks and who don't succeed attack people who do take risks and do succeed from anonymous accounts. That is Mosquito Dick line of thinking. You should be thinking like a helicopter dick. Not what happens if this fails. What happens if this succeeds? What happens if I change the world? What happens if my line of thinking is correct and I become fabulously wealthy relative to what I otherwise would have if I had curled up in the fetal position, Mosquito Dick style, and held on to my Honda Civic and my $34,000 a year job with my cold, bare hands as tightly as I possibly can. That is a line of thinking that I try to heal all of you of. Don't protect a crappy something that you have and keep yourself from reaching out for something that could be massive. I see it happen all the time. Most people fail in life because they don't dare greatly. They don't take risks. They try to protect their $34,000 a year job and their Honda Civic and their roommate that they share an apartment with. Instead of actually daring greatly, they curl up in the fetal position and refuse to take chances. I've told you, I'll tell you, I've failed a lot in life. I will continue to fail a lot in life. If you never fail, it means that you are behaving like a pussy, right? If you only win, it means that you are not taking any actual risks. It means that you are content to bunt to get on base over and over and over again. And you know what eventually happens? People who refuse to swing and bunt to get on base eventually get passed up. And you're eventually going to lose in this day and age anyway. But it's amazing to me how anytime somebody has a brand new idea, immediately people say, oh, why would that not work? And I've seen it my entire life. When I started Outkick, do you know how many people said, oh my God, you're crazy, you're stupid, what are you doing? I wouldn't be a multimillionaire if I hadn't started Outkick. I wouldn't be thinking like a helicopter dick. I'd be a lot like you guys, little mosquito dicks, running around, worried about keeping my $34,000 a year job and my Honda Pilot or whatever it is. Honda, what's the crappy car? Honda Accord? I don't even know what crappy cars are. I drive a Range, boys. I'm not even a car guy. I know my car's good, all right? Whatever pathetic car the mosquito dicks of the world drive, that ain't me, all right? So you either take a risk and dare to succeed greatly, or you curl up in the fetal position and spend the rest of your life telling other people who are more successful than you why their ideas won't work. Look at Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon dared greatly with the first XFL. He dared greatly when he took a mom and pop industry in wrestling and brought it all together and turned it into a huge multi-billion-dollar business. Maybe he will fail. But you know why? What happens if he fails? He's still a billionaire. He's still a lot richer than you and me. And if he succeeds, he makes even more money. But I don't even think the XFL is about money necessarily to Vince McMahon. I think it's about doing something well, taking a risk, and being rewarded. All right? I am here to tell you, don't think like a mosquito dick. Think like a helicopter dick. All right. Speaking of thinking like a helicopter dick, John Calipari is a much better negotiator than he is a head coach. Somehow, despite the fact that he is the highest paid coach in all of sports when it comes to college basketball, and nobody else is even close. John Calipari already made $9 million a year. Roy Williams, $3.9 million. You've got all these other guys. Bill Self, a little bit over $4 million. You've got what's his name over at Tom Izzo, $4.1 million. These guys are John Calipari's contemporaries. John Calipari's already making $9 million. And UCLA comes to him, trying to swing for the fences and pull a Chip Kelly Part 2. And instead of offering him more money, they offer him less money. Somehow John Calipari gets offered less money by UCLA, turns around and goes to Kentucky and gets a raise and a lifetime contract. If he coached basketball as well as he negotiates, John Calipari would have 20 national championships. This is one of the most amazing negotiating ploys I've ever seen. Somebody came to him and offered him less money, and he took it back to Kentucky because he knew that Kentucky was so insecure that even the idea that somebody might offer less money to him, they gave him more money. Think about that for a minute. This is like an ugly woman offering to sleep with you. You go to your wife and say, hey, this ugly chick is offering to sleep with me. And she says, you know what? You're right. We should have a threesome. I need John Calipari to negotiate everything in my life. You got no offer, and somehow you turn it into a better offer than you could have ever dreamed of beforehand. John Calipari turned water into wine. He turned the fishes into a never-ending series of fishes. It ain't a coincidence that JC and JC have the same initials. They both made something out of nothing. Kentucky fans are all triggered because they don't understand basic math. If John Calipari is worth $10 million a year to coach basketball, Nick Saban is worth $40 million a year to coach football. Because, again, this is basic economics. I want you to listen closely. Listen closely, Kentucky fans, all right? Watch my mouth if you have hearing issues. I would tell you to read, but we know that's a foregone conclusion already. I don't want to taunt you. Football is an infinitely bigger business than basketball. The University of Kentucky, even with Mark Stoops, who by and large has not been that winning, notwithstanding what he did last year, makes way more money for Kentucky than John Calipari does in basketball. The state of football in Kentucky matters more than the state of basketball for the success of the overall athletic program. So, in order to be in this position, you have to analyze this in a very rigorous and serious perspective. There is a reason that no other college basketball program in the country, other than Duke, who has Coach K, spends this kind of money on a basketball coach. It's because it is utterly unjustifiable given the economics of basketball. This year, Alabama is going to make around $50 million on their football program. $50 million profit the University of Alabama is going to make on their football program. That's direct profit predicated on Nick Saban's success. The University of Kentucky's basketball program is going to make $0 effectively. They are going to do revenue of around $28 million. So, Nick Saban's Alabama football program produces almost twice as much profit as the University of Kentucky's basketball program does revenue. This is an unbelievable stat. And this is why so many athletic directors see the number that John Calipari is getting and say, this is nonsensical. There's a reason Roy Williams, Tom Izzo, and Bill Self all make around $4 million. It's because no athletic department budget allows a coach to make $10 million to coach basketball because the business of basketball is just not big enough. This doesn't even consider the fact that John Calipari has only won one title in 10 years. Coach K has won 2 titles in the past 10 years. Roy Williams has won 2 titles in the past 11 years. Jay Wright has won 2 titles in the past 4 years. all of those guys paid much less money than John Calipari. If Kentucky was smart, they would have said, you know what, John Calipari, go to UCLA. We'll pay half as much to Chris Beard, and we'll actually have a profitable basketball program again. Again, this is basic economics. Not a surprise that most Kentucky fans don't understand basic economics. They just want to do whatever they think they need to John Calipari to keep him happy, but you need an athletic director who actually understands basic economics, and the basic economics are broken at Kentucky. There's a reason why Adolph Rupp got a Cadillac when he won a basketball championship, and Bear Bryant got a lighter when he won a championship in football. It's because uniquely among all 50 states, for whatever reason, Kentucky cares more about basketball than football. Every other state, yes, that includes Indiana and North Carolina, cares more about football than they do basketball. And as a result, basic economics don't apply. It's like AOC is running the Kentucky athletic department and has no clue what's actually going on from one moment to the next. John Calipari getting $10 million to coach college basketball in Kentucky is like the Green New Deal brought to college athletics. It just don't add up, boys and girls. It don't make no sense. And yes, that's a double negative, but I'm trying to talk to people from Kentucky. This is the big blue new Green Deal, which is not an easy phrase, but it doesn't make sense. And in the process, Kentucky has handcuffed itself to John Calipari for the next decade. The question everybody should be asking is, how much money is it going to cost Kentucky to actually get out of this deal in the event that Kentucky doesn't end up winning very much with John Calipari as he ages, which I think is likely. Which I think is very, very likely. As he moves towards 70, it's unlikely that John Calipari is going to experience the same level of success that he has so far. So this is a disastrous decision. People all over the country who are intelligent and look at economics are looking at what Kentucky is giving John Calipari, and they are saying, this is absolute insanity. Two good gambling bets for you guys. Maybe at Kentucky, they can take all the money that they've guaranteed John Calipari, drive straight to Las Vegas, and put all their money on these two over-unders so they can hope to be able to balance the budget and make sense of the stupidity of their leaders when it comes to this John Calipari contract. The over on the Indianapolis Colts, 9 wins this season. I love it. The over on the Indianapolis Colts, 9 wins. And the under on the Baltimore Ravens, 8.5. I think the Ravens are going to fall off the face of the planet. I think they are going to be a disaster. Okay? I think with Lamar Jackson, with a defense that is weakened because they let a lot of the talent go, and with an offseason to get ready for him, the Ravens are primed to be the biggest disappointment in the NFL relative to last season. I take the under and run to the window to get under 8.5. Think about it. Lamar Jackson is a running quarterback. What has year 2 typically meant for traditional running quarterbacks in the NFL? RG3, disaster. Vince Young, disaster. Tim Tebow, disaster. When NFL teams have an entire offseason to get ready for you, they expose you if you are a running quarterback. The only thing that consistently works in the NFL is somebody who can pass on 3rd and 8. That isn't Lamar Jackson. The Ravens are going to fall off the face of the earth. They are going under 8.5. Doesn't even consider how much better the Browns are going to be with now they've got Baker Mayfield and all the young talent that the Browns have on their roster. They have to play them twice in the AFC North, and what I believe is going to be a decent Pittsburgh Steelers team with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown gone, and that offense feeling like they need to prove something. I think the under is a huge bet, great bet on the Baltimore Ravens, who I see as being the worst team against the number of wins. Under 8.5 is the play. On the flip side, the best play in the NFL in the offseason, I love everything about the Indianapolis Colts. Last year, they solidified the offensive line around Andrew Luck. They kept him healthy throughout the entire year. He is now going to be in his second year in the Frank Reich system. The defense continues to improve immensely. They still have a lot of money to spend to fill in holes as they move through the season and get ready for the kickoff of the new year. I love the over on the Colts 9, all right? In the AFC South, the Jacksonville Jaguars over-under is 8. The Titans over-under is 8.5. They expect for the Houston Texans to regress and go back to 8.5. You know that the Indianapolis Colts, which own the Tennessee Titans, Andrew Luck is 11-0 against the Tennessee Titans. He never loses to them. You know that's 2 wins in the bag. I love the over on the Indianapolis Colts 9, all right? This is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, a good play. Finally, I got you with some gambling odds on Game of Thrones. I love everything about Game of Thrones. It starts on April 14th. That's a week from Sunday. There are a lot of odds coming out. My friends at OddsShark have a couple of really entertaining numbers for you out there. I want to give them to you. They have the odds out right now for who is going to be sitting on the Iron Throne when Game of Thrones ends. I don't know how many of you are huge fans of Game of Thrones, but we do a live reaction show here. If you're new to listening or watching Outkick the Show, on April 14th, the minute that Game of Thrones ends, I will hit the button here and we will go live and we will be talking. Bran has moved to plus 220 to be sitting on the Iron Throne. Jon Snow's at plus 350. Sansa at 5-1. Daenerys at 7-1. Gendry at 7-1. Littlefinger, who evidently must still be alive, at 10-1. The Night King 10-1. Tyrion 10-1. Jon and Daenerys' baby 14-1. Arya 16-1. Samwell 20-1. Cersei 25-1. Jaime 40-1. Varys 70-1. Bran, again, your big favorite to end up on the Iron Throne. Also, these are also cool. There are odds on when will Cersei Lannister perish. All right, are you ready? Episodes 1 and 2, 33-1. Episode 3 and 4, plus 450. Episode 5 or 6, those are the final 2. Remember, it's just 5 and 6 episodes, minus 650. Does not perish, 7-1. It sounds like Cersei is going to get it. I think Jaime is going to kill her, not Arya. All right? Those are my predictions for Game of Thrones. I love all of you. My name is Clay Travis. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I'm hopping over to do television. I'll be on FS1 for the next hour, starting at 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, 2:30 Mountain, 1:30 Pacific. Kisses from me to you. DBAP, boys and girls, unless you need to SBAP. This has been Outkick the Show. Love you. See y'all. Love you, Facebook. See you guys.